Is higher education at a breaking point? The fate of academic independence may hinge on an unexpected source: Harvard's negotiation strategy with the Trump administration. There's a lot more at stake here than just dollars and cents. As this story unfolds, every move sends shockwaves across American universities. But here's where it gets controversial. Will Harvard's next move safeguard the soul of academia, or mark the beginning of the end for institutional autonomy? Let's set the scene. In recent weeks, top-tier Ivy League universities, like the University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, and Brown, have all made concessions to the Trump administration's demands to unlock federal funding that had been frozen. These agreements didn't just come with strings attached. They also included multi-million-dollar penalties for 2 of the schools. Now, all eyes are on Harvard. According to reports from the New York Times, the university is nearing an agreement that would restore access to more than $2 billion in withheld federal research grants and contracts. This is no pocket change. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Boston could decide at any moment whether to unfreeze Harvard's funds. Academic circles are buzzing with anxiety over this possibility. Harvard, famed for its resources and reputation, has so far been the only major institution to challenge the administration in court over this financial freeze. If even Harvard bends under government pressure, the big question is, can any university truly stand its ground? Harvard has both the might and the responsibility to set a standard for the rest of academia, insists Veena Dubal, a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, and general counsel for the American Association of University Professors, which has itself brought legal action over federal threats to Harvard's funding. But here's the tough reality. Some experts say talks with the Trump White House might actually be Harvard's wisest path forward, given today's political climate and the risks to the university's future. We're facing the most serious crisis American universities have seen in our lifetimes, warns Kenneth Wong, professor of education policy at Brown University. He says the administration's actions are not just financial. They're undoing the long-standing partnership between universities and the federal government, dating back over 50 years. Wong proposes that a negotiated agreement, however distasteful it may seem, might be the only way to rebuild the critical bridge between academia and Washington. How did things get here? The White House pulled research funding from Columbia and Brown by claiming the schools were permitting anti-Semitism on their campuses and demanding sweeping overhauls in response. Pressure extended even further. Attempts to bar international students from enrolling at Harvard, and even direct threats to the university's accreditation. In fact, Harvard stood firm in April, rejecting federal calls to modify core policies on hiring and discipline. The administration responded by freezing research support, prompting Harvard to go to court. But lately, the university has signaled, according to the Times, that it might be willing to pay as much as $500 million to resolve the dispute, a claim Harvard's president Alan Garber has officially denied. Let's put that in context. Brown University accepted a $50 million penalty, and Columbia agreed to pay $221 million, making Harvard's potential settlement astronomically higher. Despite repeated requests, Harvard has yet to comment on the specifics of any possible deal. The details of these settlements are eye-opening. Take Columbia, for example. In a 22-page agreement, the university pledged not only to revamp its anti-discrimination policies, but also to turn over extensive data, like applicant test scores, grades, and racial demographics to federal officials. Columbia must also ban campus programs that promote unlawful efforts to achieve race-based outcomes, quotas, diversity goals, or similar activities. These agreements came on the heels of $400 million in frozen federal contracts, And Colombia's president reported the true financial losses were even greater until a deal was made. Colombia's penalty, $200 million paid to the government over 3 years, plus an additional $21 million to settle Equal Employment Opportunity Commission probes. Brown University struck a similar deal, providing applicant data, complying with the administration's gender definitions, and investing $50 million for local workforce development instead of direct federal payment. The University of Pennsylvania negotiated away participation by most transgender athletes in sports, agreeing to a biology-based understanding of sex aligned with the Trump administration's approach to Title IX. The university paid no fine in exchange. And here's the part most people miss. Despite widespread criticism from free speech advocates, Colombia's leadership claims their academic freedom remains intact, with university operations and curricula firmly under their control. The fine print of their agreement states that the government cannot dictate faculty hiring, admissions, or academic content. But can such assurances truly protect academic freedom in the long run? Vina Dubal from UC Irvine suggests otherwise, warning that these settlements could still influence university practices. The risk is subtle but potent. Making hiring data available to government monitors could prompt leadership to avoid hiring scholars who might provoke federal criticism, dragging universities into a cycle of self-censorship. John Fansmith, a senior policy executive at the American Council on Education, says even considering a deal has sparked outrage among many in higher ed, yet concedes that financial necessity could drive Harvard to the table. President Garber has made clear that while financial leverage matters, there are red lines, including any attempt to dictate teaching content or faculty decisions, that Harvard would not cross. And the controversy intensifies. Some Harvard alumni have issued a public letter condemning any compromise, calling the Columbia and Brown settlements a dangerous capitulation. 14 Harvard-educated members of Congress threatened a formal investigation if Harvard moves forward, and warn that a deal could undermine academic independence for institutions across the nation. There's also a difference in how settlements are being monitored. Columbia's agreement involves a third-party overseer, while Brown's compliance will be watched by federal authorities. Brown's Kenneth Wong speculates that debate over who monitors Harvard might be a major sticking point in these negotiations. An internal monitor or a government-appointed one could change the power dynamic significantly. Here's a potential silver lining. Brown's decision to direct its settlement money locally has sparked hope that if Harvard does pay a large penalty, some of that funding might go to community colleges and vocational programs in Massachusetts, boosting job prospects for local workers, something President Trump's administration has publicly favored. So, what do you think? Is Harvard negotiating from strength or capitulating under pressure? Will these settlements protect research and academic freedom, or lay foundations for government overreach? Do you view these enforcement tactics as justified tools for accountability, or are they threats to the very independence higher education needs to thrive? The lines are being drawn, but the debate is far from over. Where do you stand? Share your thoughts below, especially if you have a strong take one way or the other. Can the academic world afford to compromise, or is the price of admission too high?